Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, joins me now. So the Elon-Democrat relationship's quite interesting. Sometimes you got to break up to make up, but maybe not, Newt.
No, I think this is real, and I think it's for a good reason. The Democrats went nuts, and Elon's been pretty open about this. When you look at their policies, you look at their values, they are a dead end for America. And I think he genuinely came to believe in the last 2 years of the Biden administration that they were so crazy, they were so out of control, that you really had to do something very dramatic to get control of the government. And, you know, they're going to make some mistakes. It's going to be challenging. But on the other hand, 82% of the American people think that Washington is corrupt. Think about it. You know, 8 out of every 10 Americans, according to an America's New Majority Project poll, 8 out of 10 think their government is corrupt. Now, you can't survive as a free society if you have a government which is so despised by your own people. And that's why I think what Schumer announced today, that he's going to not help keep the government open, he's going to stand and fight. You know, he's on the wrong side of history, and the American people know it. The American people want this government to be smaller. The American people want something like DOGE. And every time Elon releases another set of really stupid spending, I think people look around and go, wow. You know, they kind of knew it was bad, but even as much as I've studied the government, I didn't know it was this sick and had this many things that are totally indefensible.
So Chuck Schumer is going to shut down the government so we keep funding a program to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep teen boys from getting pregnant.
Well, I think if you're Schumer, these are all your allies. Remember, the people getting all this money tended to be liberal Democrats. It's the teachers' unions, the government employee unions. It's the various left-wing intellectuals in the universities. And all of them were getting money from the taxpayer. They loved it. They thought it was fabulous. We have an education system where the teachers' unions have basically destroyed the capacity. Over half the 8th graders cannot read at grade level. And if you watch, there's this chart. It goes straight up for how much we're spending and straight down for how much we're achieving in education. And of course, you know, if you're the people who are writing that chart and you've been getting paid every week, it's unfortunate that nobody's learning, but at least I got my paycheck. And now along comes Donald Trump, and he says, you know, maybe we need to shake the system up so kids actually learn. Well, the teachers' union's horrified. I mean, this would end the gravy train.
Well, the kids are learning. They're just learning how to transition into the opposite sex. Boys are getting pregnant, and we're spending a lot of money to stop that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Newt. It is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. And I don't understand why Democrats say, you know what, Elon, you got that one. Let's knock that one off. Why can't they say that?
I don't know. Look, I think things like having a major research project on transgender mice would be in the same league. I mean, some night, because you're always very funny and you're always very good, some night you ought to find the 10 or 20 truly dumbest things and just run them.
I mean, transgender mice, preventing teen boys from getting pregnant. I mean, we're off to a hot start. What about this new line of attack that Democrats are saying that Republicans are for the rich? Is that going to stick?
Well, I think Republicans ought to say we're for everybody.
They are.
I mean, we actually think you ought to have a chance to get a job, not just be on welfare and be dependent. You ought to have a chance to open a small business. You ought to have a chance to have take-home pay. I mean, a lot of these are very bold ideas. You ought to have a chance to go to work. And I think that we want to be the party. And if you watch what Trump's doing in terms of massive investments in the future of this country, we will presently see a boom that is going to be unlike anything we've seen in a very long time, because we're having more and more people deciding this is the place they want to build, this is the place they're going to manufacture, and you're going to see an enormous comeback of American manufacturing, and that means an enormous comeback in jobs for Americans.
Well, hopefully the country has the patience for the boom, because the way the media covers these stock market swings, you'd think it was the Great Depression. You have a little more patience than the press, Newt?
Well, it's not just that. Donald Trump, as a businessman, went through this. If you read his fabulous book on the art of the comeback, I mean, he's been through recessions. He gets it. You know, the other side of the recession is called a recovery. Reagan got into office. He inherited a terrible economy from Jimmy Carter. Once the Reagan tax cuts went into effect, they have something like I think Larry Kudlow said the other day, 15% growth in the first quarter after the tax cuts went into effect. So if Trump, and Mike Johnson's been doing an amazing job as Speaker with a really narrow margin, if Trump can get one big, beautiful bill through, ideally by late May, and you have the tax cuts, you have the deregulation, you have the energy supplies, you'll see this economy booming by next January.
All right. And Newt can get himself another tie. Mr. Gingrich,
Yep.
Mr. Speaker.
I'd like to have at least 2 ties. Right.
Thank you so much for joining.